What is the Spanish word for passport?
Pasaporte.
What does coach mean in English?
Car.
What is the Spanish term for money?
Dinero.
What is the Spanish term for health?
Salud.
What is la cocina in English?
The kitchen.
What does taza mean in English?
Cup.
What is the Spanish word for glass?
Vaso.
What is the Spanish word for beach ball?
Pelota de playa.
What is the Spanish word for mirror?
Espejo.
What is the Spanish word for diving?
Bucear.
What is the Spanish word for tide?
Marea.
What does parking lot mean in Spanish?
Estacionamiento.
What is the Spanish word for beef?
Ternera.
What does floor mean in English?
Flagware.
What is el gato in English?
De cat.
What is la ventana in English?
De window.
What do you call beans in Spanish?
Frijoles.
What is vinegar in Spanish?
Vinagre.
What is the Spanish word for beach towel?
Toalla de playa.
What is the Spanish word for sail?
Vela.
What is the capital of Switzerland?
Bern.
What is the capital of the Philippines?
Manila.
What is the Spanish term for food?
Comida.
What is the Spanish word for garlic?
Ajo.
What is the Spanish word for family?
Familia.
Which activity involves walking on a balance beam?
Gymnastics.
What fruit is called fresa in Spanish?
Strawberry.
What is the Spanish word for to swim?
Nadar.
What do you call onions in Spanish?
Cebollas.
What fruit is called plátano in Spanish?
Banana.
What is the Spanish word for spoon?
Cuchara.
What is the Spanish term for family?
Familia.
What is the Spanish word for menu?
Carta.
What is garlic in Spanish?
Ajo.
What is the Spanish word for window?
Ventana.
What is the Spanish word for breaststroke?
Braza.
What is the name of the largest ocean on Earth?
Pacific Ocean.
What is the front crawl called in Spanish?
Estilo libre.
What is the Spanish word for to eat?
Comer.
What is the Spanish word for hotel?
Hotel.
What is the Spanish term for school?
Escuela.
Which activity involves walking on a tightrope?
Highlining.
What is the Spanish term for walkway?
Pasillo.
What is the Spanish word for sandcastle?
Castillo de arena.
What does descanso mean in English?
Break.
Which activity involves walking on rugged terrain?
Rock climbing.
What is cinnamon in Spanish?
Canela.
What is onion in Spanish?
Cebolla.
What is the Spanish word for to speak?
Hablar.
What is the Spanish term for money?
Dinero.
Which type of shoes is recommended for long walks?
Sneakers.
What fruit is called pomelo in Spanish?
Grapefruit.
What is the largest continent by land area?
Asia.
What is the Spanish word for tide?
Marea.
What fruit is called manzana in Spanish?
Apple.
What does la playa mean in English?
Beach.
What does estirar mean in English?
Stretch.
What is olive oil in Spanish?
Aceite de oliva.
What is the Spanish word for food?
Comida.
What is the Spanish word for world?
Mundo.
What is the Spanish word for portfolio?
Portafolio.
What is ginger in Spanish?
Jengibre.
What is the Spanish word for knife?
Cuchillo.
What is the Spanish word for suitcase?
Maleta.
What is the Spanish word for sailing?
Navegar.
What is the Spanish term for school?
Escuela.
What is the Spanish word for oven?
Horno.
What do you call bread in Spanish?
Pan.
What is the Spanish term for world?
Mundo.
What fruit is called ciruela in Spanish?
Plum.
What is the Spanish word for stove?
Estufa.
What fruit is called mora in Spanish?
Blackberry.
What is the smallest country in the world?
Vatican City.
What do you call potatoes in Spanish?
Patatas.
What fruit is called pera in Spanish?
Pear.
What is the Spanish word for breakfast?
Desayuno.
What fruit is the source of the spice nutmeg?
Nuez moscada.
What do you call the entrance to a house or apartment?
Entrada.
What is the Spanish term for house?
Casa.
What is the Spanish word for beach chair?
Silla de playa.
What is the Spanish word for sailing?
Navegar.
What is the Spanish word for seashell?
Concha.
What is the name of the largest desert in the world?
Sahara Desert.
Which activity involves walking in shallow water?
Swimming.
What is the Spanish word for diving?
Bucear.
What is el teléfono in English?
De phone.
What is el dinero in English?
De money.
What does descansar mean in English?
Relax.
What is the Spanish word for tablecloth?
Mantel.
What does libro mean in English?
Book.
What is the Spanish term for family?
Familia.
What is the Spanish word for fork?
Tenedor.
What do you call fish in Spanish?
Pescado.
What is the Spanish word for spoon?
Cuchara.
What is the Spanish word for trail?
Sendero.
What is the Spanish word for work?
Trabajo.
What is the highest mountain in Africa?
Mount Kilimanjaro.
What is the SI unit of electrical resistance?
Ohmio.
What is the sport that involves throwing a frisbee?
Ultimate.
What does zapato mean in English?
Shoe.
What is the Spanish word for house?
Casa.
What is the Spanish word for dishwasher?
Lavaplatos.
What is the Spanish word for surfboard?
Tabla de surf.
What is the Spanish word for bottle?
Botella.
What do you call a person who takes care of your pets?
Veterinario.
What is the Spanish word for reef?
Arrecife.
What does descanso mean in English?
Break.
What is el escritorio in English?
De desk.
What is the Spanish word for souvenir?
Recuerdo.
What is the Spanish word for chicken?
Pollo.
What does mesa mean in English?
Table.
What is the Spanish word for to drink?
Beber.
What is the Spanish word for flip turn?
Viraje.
What is the Spanish word for ticket?
Boletos.
What is the Spanish word for to sleep?
Dormir.
What is the Spanish word for time?
Tiempo.
What is the largest organ in the human body?
Skin.
What do you call carrots in Spanish?
Zanahorias.
Which type of terrain is suitable for walking?
Rocky Mountains.
What is the Spanish word for house?
Casa.
What fruit has a variety known as Honeycrisp?
Manzana.
What is the Spanish word for spoon?
Cuchara.
Which activity involves walking on the beach?
Beach combine.
What is the Spanish word for rowing?
Remo.
What is the Spanish word for water?
Agua.
What is the Spanish term for health?
Salud.
What do you call milk in Spanish?
Leche.
Which activity involves walking on uneven terrain?
Rock climbing.
What is the Spanish word for grater?
Rallador.
What is la mesa in English?
The table.
What is the Spanish word for red?
Rojo.
What does vir mean in English?
Tusi.
What is the Spanish word for sun?
Sol.
What is the Spanish word for food?
Comida.
What is the Spanish term for money?
Dinero.
What is the Spanish term for time?
Tiempo.
What is the Spanish word for boat?
Barco.
What does casa mean in English?
House.
What is the Spanish term for long-distance walking?
Senderismo.
What is the Spanish word for work?
Trabajo.
What is the Spanish word for sunglasses?
Gafas de sol.
What is butter in Spanish?
Mantequilla.
What does escribir mean in English?
To write.
What is the basic unit of capacitance?
Faradio.
What is the Spanish word for to eat?
Comer.
What is the Spanish word for beach towel?
Toalla.
What is the Spanish word for stroll?
Paseo.
What is the Spanish term for city?
Ciudad.
What does comma mean in English?
Bed.
What is the Spanish word for tourist?
Turista.
What is el perro in English?
De dog.
What is the name of the currency used in Japan?
Yen.
What is a rolling peon called in Spanish?
Rodillo.
What fruit is called lima in Spanish?
Lime.
What do you call a person who cooks in a restaurant?
Chef.
What is the Spanish word for walking pace?
Ritmo.
What is the Spanish word for book?
Libro.
What is the largest planet in our solar system?
Júpiter.
What is the Spanish word for lifeguard?
Salvavidas.
What is the Spanish word for pork?
Cerdo.
What is la silla in English?
Decher.
What is the Spanish word for rowing?
Remo.
What does pausa mean in English?
Break.
What does gato mean in English?
Cat.
What is the Spanish word for beach umbrella?
Sombrilla.
What do you call chicken in Spanish?
Pollo.
Which activity involves walking in shallow water?
Swimming.
What does leer mean in English?
To read.
What is the Spanish word for wave?
Ola.
What is the Spanish word for fisherman?
Pescador.
What does turn mean in Spanish?
Girar.
What is the Spanish term for dog?
Perro.
What is the Spanish word for surfing?
Surf.
What is the Spanish word for snorkeling?
Buceo con tubo.
What is the Spanish term for savings?
Ahorros.
What is the Spanish word for time?
Tiempo.
What is the Spanish term for school?
Escuela.
What fruit is called frambuesa in Spanish?
Raspberry.
What is the Spanish word for to drink?
Beber.
What does perro mean in English?
Dog.
What is the Spanish word for sea turtle?
Tortuga marina.
What is the Spanish word for walking path?
Sendero.
What fruit is called naranja in Spanish?
Orange.
What do you call a person who works with computers?
Programador.
What is la puerta in English?
Dedor.
What is the Spanish word for time?
Tiempo.
What is the Spanish word for sunscreen?
Crema solar.
What fruit is called limón in Spanish?
Lemon.
What is the Spanish term for money?
Dinero.
What is the capital of Greece?
Athens.
What is the Spanish word for house?
Casa.
What is the Spanish word for carrot?
Zanahoria.
What is the Spanish word for sun?
Sol.
What do you call the floor of a room in a house?
Suelo.
What is el horno in English?
De oven.
What is the Spanish word for backstroke?
Espalda.
What is the sport that uses a long stick and a ball?
Lacrosse.
What is the Spanish word for bill?
Cuenta.
What is the Spanish word for cycling?
Ciclismo.
What is the Spanish word for waiter?
Mesero.